Drugs and a divided community, that's a recipe for disaster, according to some Wentworth residents who are in shock. An alleged female drug lord was murdered last week, and that's triggered fear of more violence in the area.
She had no idea it would be her final ride. On a quiet October evening in Bluff, Durban, Simone Jasmin stepped into an Uber, thinking it was just another trip. Minutes later, 6 bullets tore through her body. She had ruled the streets of Wentworth like a queen, loved by some, feared by most, and watched by all. Her name was synonymous with crime, power, and contradiction. The news of her assassination echoed across South Africa. But this was not just a gangland killing. This was the calculated takedown of a woman who had built an empire in a male-dominated underworld. A woman who had blurred the lines between protector and predator. This is the story of Simone Jasmin, South Africa's Queen of the South. Simone Jasmin was born and raised in Wentworth, a suburb in Durban's south, marked by social housing blocks, chronic unemployment, and violent drug feuds. The Lansdowne Road barracks, where she grew up, were infamous, not just for poverty, but for breeding generations of young people swallowed by gang life. She grew up in a tough environment. Her family, like many others in the area, struggled with the economic isolation that plagued colored communities during and after apartheid. Amid the chaos of unemployment and drugs, Simone learned survival young. She was known in the community for her street-smart attitude, her no-nonsense demeanor, and a fashion sense that would later become her trademark: tracksuits, sneakers, and no makeup. As a teenager, she fell in love with a local gangster deeply entrenched in the drug business. He was murdered in a turf war, and while many women would have disappeared from the scene, Simone did the opposite. She took over his operation, and then she expanded it. Simone wasn't just an ordinary dealer. She had vision. She understood the dynamics of power, how to control territory, build networks, and maintain loyalty. She was meticulous and calculating, treating her drug business like a corporation. Under her leadership, heroin flowed through Umlazi, KwaMashu, Lamontville, and the Bluff. Her drug empire was rumored to bring in over 200,000 rand a day. What made her unique was how she balanced ruthlessness with generosity. For every drug she moved, she gave back to the community. Simone paid for school uniforms, covered funeral costs, handed out food parcels, and threw parties for children. In an area where the government was absent, Simone filled the void. To many, she wasn't just a dealer, she was a provider, a local legend, a female Robin Hood. But behind the generosity was an operation built on fear and violence. Those who crossed her reportedly vanished. Rivals were ambushed. Traitors were silenced. And witnesses, they kept their mouths shut. Her control wasn't just physical, it was psychological. She bought loyalty with both kindness and fear. She spoke softly, but moved with deadly precision. Many in Wentworth respected her. Others were terrified. But all of them knew one thing: Simone Jasmin was untouchable. Simone's wealth didn't just come from drugs. She invested her earnings into the taxi industry, real estate, and small businesses. She cleaned her money through fronts that appeared legitimate: taxis in Umlazi, flats in Bluff, tuck shops in Wentworth. She was everywhere. As her empire grew, so did her influence. She had police officers on her payroll, connections to politicians, and deep roots in street-level gangs. She was known to handle her own security, drive alone, and meet with clients personally. Her boldness was both respected and feared. But that boldness attracted enemies. Simone had begun stepping into territories traditionally controlled by other gangsters, mostly men who didn't take kindly to being outsmarted by a woman. In the underworld, expansion is seen as a declaration of war, and Simone was expanding fast. It was in Umlazi where the first real signs of rebellion surfaced. A rival crew tied to the local taxi mafia clashed with her distributors over control of routes and corners. What started as a turf dispute escalated into all-out violence. Drive-by shootings became frequent. Her operatives were gunned down. In retaliation, Simone's people struck back harder. What followed was a wave of violence that swept across Durban's south. Cars riddled with bullets, bodies dumped in alleys, police left helpless. The war was out in the open. Simone had been on the police radar for years, but arrests never stuck. Witnesses refused to testify. Dockets mysteriously went missing. On paper, she looked clean. Off paper, everyone knew who ran the show. But in 2020, the state finally made its move. The anti-gang unit launched a sweeping crackdown on syndicates operating in and around Durban. Several of Simone's associates were arrested. Corrupt police officers linked to her cartel were also exposed. One of them, Warrant Officer Brian James, was criminally charged. The heat was closing in. Simone herself was arrested on multiple charges, including drug trafficking, possession of illegal firearms, and money laundering. But again, she was released on bail. The justice system couldn't hold her. No witness would speak. No evidence would stick. She walked out of court smiling, untouched, unmoved. But not everyone was silent. Inside her own operation, cracks were starting to show. Some of her lieutenants feared her recklessness was drawing too much attention. Her growing confidence was making enemies, both inside and out. And then came October. On the evening of October 28th, 2020, Simone visited a friend in Bluff. She later called an Uber to take her home. Around 7:30 p.m., she got into the car. The driver began to pull away from the curb when a silver VW Polo pulled up alongside. Gunmen emerged. They opened fire without warning. 6 bullets struck Simone, 2 to the chest, 3 in the stomach, and 1 to the leg. The Uber driver, in shock, fled the vehicle. Moments later, he returned to find Simone collapsed in the back seat, bleeding heavily. He rushed her to hospital, but the damage was too severe. Hours later, she was declared dead. Her murder was not random. It was professional. It was planned. And it was personal. News of Simone's death spread instantly. Social media exploded. Some mourned her. Others celebrated. Her funeral turned into a street parade. Hundreds lined the roads of Wentworth to pay their respects. Her body was transported in a white horse-drawn hearse, followed by white Land Rovers and a police escort. Her friends dressed in black and white. Others wore her signature tracksuit style in tribute. Bagpipes played as her coffin was lowered into the ground. Some wept, some cheered. Her brother, Simone Jasmin, publicly defended her character. He called her a woman with a heart of gold, misunderstood by outsiders. According to her family, Simone had plans to turn her life around. She was a mother, a sister, a woman of resilience. But to the streets, she was also a boss, a queen, a target. To this day, no one has been arrested for Simone's murder. No official suspect has been named. No gang has claimed responsibility. The streets, however, have theories. Some say it was a rival gang from Umlazi, finally taking revenge for past killings. Others believe it was an internal betrayal, a lieutenant who feared being exposed. Some say it was a revenge hit, orchestrated by the family of a slain gangster. And then there are whispers of police involvement, of officers who had turned against her after the last arrests. The silence surrounding her death is deafening. Police have made little progress. Witnesses remain uncooperative. CCTV footage was either missing or unusable. Some of Simone's closest associates vanished after her death, either in fear or as potential suspects. The empire she built collapsed overnight. With no one strong enough to replace her, chaos returned to Wentworth. Smaller gangs fought for what remained. Violence surged again. Her assassination left a vacuum, and like all power vacuums, it was quickly filled by blood. Simone Jasmin's story is not easy to tell. She was not a hero, but she was more than a villain. In a place where the state failed its citizens, she became the state. In a world built on male power, she rose alone and ruled it. Her story is a mirror, reflecting the brokenness of South Africa's war on drugs, the cracks in the justice system, and the desperation of forgotten communities. She wasn't born into crime. She was born into survival. The lines between good and evil blurred long ago. Simone Jasmin lived like a queen, ruled like a general, and died like a legend. The Queen of the South may be gone, but her shadow still hangs over the streets of Durban. The bullets may have ended her life, but they didn't erase her name. Because in Wentworth, when people speak of power, they still whisper hers. If this story gripped you, don't just watch and walk away. Hit the subscribe button for more real South African crime stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Share this video with someone who remembers the name Simone Jasmin. Comment below. Who do you think ordered the hit? Rival gang, insider betrayal, or something deeper? The streets may be silent, but the truth still echoes. This is Queen of the South, and more stories are coming.